Hello, everybody. Welcome to my show, y'all. This is Rise and Shine with Lacey Jeter for people who are new with me. So, today I'm going to be doing a little bit different show this morning. Just to let y'all know, I'm going to wait until some people come on the live, but I'm going to be doing something a little different. And I'm going to be talking about pretty privilege with Black women. So, like, share, follow, subscribe. I'm going live on multiple platforms at once, so I'm talking to multiple audiences. So, yes, you guys, we're going to be talking about, do Black women have pretty privilege systematically? That's what we're going to be doing. So, before I get started, I'm going to talk about fragrances. All right? All fragrances, the best fragrances on the block. Okay? You can get high-end fragrance dupes for more than half of the price. There's literally some fragrances out on this market here, including this one. This is my favorite fragrance. This is Good Girl by Carolina Herrera. The biggest size, full size, is $130 some. Actually, no, I looked online. Some people are selling this fragrance for $156. All right? $156 for this. But guess what? You can get the alt stiletto. Guess how much this is? $39.99. And when I tell you, it smells the same. And it lasts the same as this. But this is the alt version. You cannot go wrong with alt. So, and like I said before, they have colognes. So if you're a man watching this, they have colognes. They have Blue Horse, which is a dupe of Polo Blue by Ralph Lauren. And they have some Louis Vuitton colognes as well, and other high-end fragrance dupes for men. So I go ahead and check it out. You can get 3 for $99. All right. So I just wanted to shout out. All people are always asking me, why you smell so good, Lacey? What's your secret? It's alt. All right. So let's get started, y'all. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to be talking about Black women, systematic pretty privilege, and toxic femininity. And the question I have for y'all, do Black women have pretty privilege systematically and globally? So there's a lot of layers to this answer, and there's a lot of layers to this question, right? So Black women I consider Black women actually the blueprint for today's beauty standards. A lot of the beauty standards of today are inspired by Black women, right? If it has to do with our lips, if it has to do with our skin, if it has to do with our body types, a lot of women want curvier bodies, right? If it has to do with just our natural features, even our hair type, like the kinky curly hair, right? The 4 type and the 3 type hair is original, really mainly to us. We are original in how we look. Black women are beautiful, right? Because like I said, y'all know how spiritual I am, y'all, right? We were made in God's image as a race, as a group of women. So we're beautiful. God wanted us to look the way we look. It doesn't matter if you're the lightest light of a Black woman or you're the darkest dark of a Black woman. Black women are beautiful. But because of racism, systematic racism definitely affects the beauty standards for Black women, because we live in a very racist society that is based off of Eurocentric beauty and Eurocentric appearance, right? They like to downgrade and they like to talk down on the Black woman. And I actually really feel that a lot of women of other races can sometimes be very jealous of Black women. They can be very jealous of us, right? And they pretend like it's our problem or that there's something wrong with the Black race, but really we're just beautiful. We're the blueprint, right? So that's the reality of the situation. But systematically, I feel like Black women can be downgraded a lot and degraded and overshadowed, especially when it comes into the system of colorism. When it comes to colorism, that's a huge issue, specifically within mainstream beauty standards, right? You have a lot of mainstream gurus, a lot of people who consider themselves self-proclaimed experts, right? Who talk about this concept of pretty privilege. To me, I have mixed feelings about the concept of pretty privilege because I feel like the whole concept of pretty privilege is very male centered, right? It comes from patriarchal society. It comes from this misogynistic way of seeing the world, this materialistic way of seeing the world, right? There's no spiritual energy behind the concept of pretty privilege. There's nothing spiritual about it, right? A lot of Christians do like to say that God will sometimes bless people with beautiful appearance because the more beautiful you are, more people will pay attention to you. And so people who are meant to spread God's word, or people who are meant to, have like a very big purpose, right? They're meant to talk to people, tend to be very attractive people because they can do their purpose and people can notice them, right? Because statistics do show when you are more attractive, you get more opportunities, right? You get more, you are able to walk into more rooms, right? So a lot of women are talking about this concept of pretty privilege and how you can use pretty privilege to better yourself and to get money and, all of these things to, be able to have those opportunities, right? And it is true that technically statistically the more attractive you are, people are going to notice you more. Does pretty privilege guarantee success? No, it doesn't. Appearance does not guarantee success. You can be the most beautiful thing in the world, but if you don't have the intelligence, you don't have the capability, you don't have the you don't have the gifts, right? You're not anointed for that specific purpose. It's not going to work in the long run. You might be able to get your foot in the door, but you won't be able to stay in the room. The same thing with relationships as well, right? The same thing with relationships, right? When you're physically attractive, right? You're able to get more attention from men, right? But just because you're physically attractive does not mean you're going to automatically have healthy relationships, right? That doesn't mean that you're going to, meet your soulmate because you're attractive, right? You're going to get the attention of people, but the attention you get might not always be positive. So let me break that down. The attention that you get might not always be positive. I'm going to move my light because I want y'all to see my eyes. The attention you get might not always be positive. You're going to attract people who are weird. You're going to attract people who are going to waste your time. You're going to attract men are very lust driven, very shallow, materialistic, because that's all they care about, right? So yes, you might get attention from that hot guy or a bunch of hot guys, but those guys do not have substance. In the long term, actually is detrimental to your mental health, is detrimental to your physical, spiritual, and emotional health because you're giving Dusty's attention, right? And these men don't know how to have a relationship that's healthy. And they're going to come with lots of baggage and come with lots of, toxicity, right? It's going to be a fake relationship, right? So that's the downside of being a beautiful person is that you're going to sometimes attract very toxic people, opportunists, people who are shallow, materialistic, right? And for the soul, that does nothing for the soul. That does absolutely nothing for the soul, right? For the soul, it's just going to make you feel sad. It's going to make you feel like you don't have really much to offer and that you're just constantly going on a hamster wheel, wasting your time with people who don't care about you, right? So that's the downside of pretty privilege. But systematically, Black women are still not given their flowers when it comes to the beauty standards. And because of colorism and because of racism and featureism and texturism, right? And misogyny and sexism and all these isms, right? Black women, even if they're beautiful, sometimes have to work harder than the next person, or might not always be given fair opportunities, or might not even always be treated right, even if they are beautiful. And also, I just wanted to say this. This was an observation that I personally saw, right? This was an option. I'm going to take my glasses off, y'all, because I don't know why my lenses are just reflecting so. But even when one thing I've noticed, a lot of these relationship gurus and a lot of these people who are constantly talking about using pretty privilege, when it comes to Blackness, specifically the Black community, one thing I've noticed with pretty privilege, it is highly, highly leaning towards the lighter side. And what I mean by that, not saying that lighter skinned people are more beautiful, because dark skin is beautiful. Dark skin is the blueprint, right? Dark skin is beautiful. Brown skin is beautiful. But a lot of Black women I've noticed who talk about pretty privilege have been lighter skinned women. Like I was just talking about, like, this with Shara Seven. Some people might not like what I'm about to say. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but this is just an observation. Shara Seven herself is a light-skinned woman. And she's always talking about pretty privilege, and she doesn't want you to wear your natural hair and all these things. Again, I agree with a lot of the things Shara Seven says, and then some things kind of throws me off that she says. I have a very neutral standpoint and neutral outlook on Shara Seven, right? When it comes to the whole get your money from these men mentality, right? I think it's Miss Andrew something. I forgot what it was called. But which I agree with a lot of things she says, because these men, they will use you. They will sleep with you. They will take all your good energy, all your feminine, beautiful energy. And you don't get anything back. There's not an even energy exchange because these men aren't taking care of you. You're doing 50-50 with these men. They're just bringing you more heartbreak, more trauma, and more drama, right? A headache. And so, what Shara Seven preaches is that you need to be able to have beautiful feminine energy, but you need to be able to get paid as well and make sure you're getting taken care of and you're being compensated for. That's really what she preaches, right? Because a lot of women get with dusties, I'm gonna say air quote dusties, men who don't have money or men who really don't have much to offer, men who have a low vibrational energy and just vibe, right? And she tells you you need to get paid. These men ask for sex on the first date. You're giving your body away. And a lot of these women are giving their body away on the first date for men who really aren't getting them that good of a meal. Like you could cover the meal. You could pay for your own dinner. So it's not like they're doing anything that's really like out of the ordinary. Hi, friend. How you doing? But yeah, it's just insane. And so what Shara is really preaching, Shara wants you to not be played. She teaches you the game in and out. right? Because you won't be played and you won't let these men get a one up on you. And I also want to mention this as well with pretty privilege. Men can have pretty privilege. People don't talk about this with men. Plenty of men have pretty privilege. I've came across men who've had pretty privilege. I've dealt with men who've had pretty privilege when I was younger, right? And let me tell you, when I was drained to the bone. These men didn't do nothing for me, and I felt like I needed to kiss their behinds, right? I was doing everything. I was trying to give them my good, positive, feminine energy, and these men were fine. They were getting their cake and eat it too. A bunch of attention from other women, right? A bunch of attention from other women, right? And so these men, they could get every woman in the book. And I felt the need to have to do these things, and they weren't taking me out on dates. They weren't get there. I was not being paid, right? They were not treating me respectfully. They were treating me unfairly as a Black woman. They were very rude to me, just causing lots of drama. They were gossipy, right? These were the type of men I dealt with in my younger years, right? This was when I was in my early 20s. Would you catch me dealing with men like this? No. Now you wouldn't. But in my early 20s, I dealt with a lot of men like this. These men felt like that they had the audacity to feel I needed to give everything to them, right? Do everything for them, right? And these men had pretty privilege. They had light skin privilege. And they had pretty privilege. They would look prettier than I did. This is why Cheryl also preaches don't date men who are prettier than you. Don't date men who are finer than you are, right? And so a lot of women are trying to become finer because, right, they won't have to deal with these men who are pretty boys, right? I've dealt with pretty boys. They are a headache. Some of them are. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting with a handsome man, but at the same time, do not feel the need to kiss these men behind and trauma dump on these men and trauma bond with these men, right? If they're getting more opportunities than you are, they're getting more money than you are. If they're able to relax more than you, right? Don't kiss their butts. Don't kiss their butts. And a lot of Black women tend to be very insecure at times, right? Because of these isms that I mentioned, right? Because of these isms. And don't be kissing nobody's butt. Don't feel insecure. I said this when it came to my live that I talked about dating as a heavier set woman or a thick woman, right? I said just because you're heavier set or you're not a size 2 or you're thick don't mean you got to kiss men's behinds. It does not mean that you have to settle for less. You have to have your standards high, right? You have to have your standards high, right? And so the same thing, it doesn't matter the color of the Black woman, light skin, brown skin, dark skin, it don't matter. You don't have to kiss nobody's behind because of your color. Or because you got loosely curled hair or you got kinky 4C hair. It don't matter. Thank you, friend. Yes, girl. I'm getting back on my normal content creating schedule, girl. Thank you. It was good. It's good seeing you too. But yes, it don't make no sense. And so systematically, the question is, I'm going to answer it. Do Black women have pretty privilege systematically and globally? I feel like yes and no. I would like to lean more on the no, not because Black women aren't beautiful. Black women absolutely are. It's because of racism and colorism. That's the reason. It's because the patriarchal society, misogyny, preaches that the lighter you are, the thinner you are, the more beautiful you are, right? The looser curled your hair is, the more beautiful you are. This is based on global mainstream beauty standards. Is that true? No, it's not true. Just because somebody's lighter skin or not Black doesn't mean that they're beautiful physically. beauty is also subjective. One person might think that a specific type is beautiful, and the other person might not, right? Just because somebody's thin, framed, doesn't mean that they're beautiful. Just because somebody has loosely curled hair doesn't mean that they're beautiful. It does not mean that. Just because you have these features like a small nose or whatever doesn't mean that you're beautiful. Just because you have lighter eyes doesn't mean you're beautiful. And I said this in my other live. And there's this whole stereotype, and I like to say this with the Black community, there is definitely always some sort of connection with colorism, light skin, and pretty privilege. And I'm gonna say it. I see a lot of beautiful dark skinned women. I see a lot of beautiful dark skinned women, right? But you don't hear a lot of dark skinned women who are beautiful constantly talking about how they have pretty privilege or constantly bragging about, oh, I get benefits because I'm pretty. You only see lighter skinned people talk about pretty privilege when it comes to themselves. Some people might not like me saying that, but I've noticed that. Like, all the people I mentioned online talking about beautiful, like there's even like these YouTube channels now. They're called exoticals. I don't know if y'all have seen these YouTube channels, but it's the exotical YouTube channels, right? Apparently this movement of lighter skin mixed race, racially ambiguous women who are going online talking about how they're exoticals and how they get treated a certain way because they're exotical. It's absolutely weird to me. It's weird. Some of their videos I can understand what they're talking about, and then in other videos I don't understand what they're talking about. I don't get it. Like it's always they're always talking about it more so than everybody else. And this is not me trying to throw anybody under the bus, but you do not hear a lot of dark-skinned women bragging about how beautiful they are when they are a beautiful woman. Right? And this is why I kind of like question the whole pretty privilege movement, because there's some women that got toxic femininity. They're very competitive with other women, right? They want to feel superior because they have those privileges, because they have light skin privilege, or because they have texturism privilege or featurist privilege, right? But these are all aspects of racism, which racism in itself is a very dysfunctional construct, right? So when you are benefiting from a privilege that is based on something as destructive as racism, that is not something that you really should be celebrating, right? I see beautiful women everywhere. I see beautiful women everywhere. You say, I cannot stand. I like this comment. I cannot stand when Black men call non-Black or mixed women exotic. Yes. I'm going to show her comment, y'all. I cannot stand when Black men call non-Black or mixed women exotic. I can't either, girl. I can't even. It's that internalized self-hatred, that internalized racism and colorism that they have. And the sad thing is, it is Black men who instigate this a lot. Like there's Black men who will sit up and talk to non-Black women as well as lighter skinned women, constantly talking about how they're so beautiful and how all the women should look like them, how all the women should have the hair like them. It don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. I don't understand it. And Black men need to be held accountable when it comes to colorism because they instigate a lot of it. Right? This is why I always like to tell Black men, if you have friends who are colorists, call them out on it, even if you're not Black. You want to know something? What I've been loving, y'all? Lately, I've been seeing a whole lot of white men. Yes, girl. The white men, we like to call them easy white chocolate. That's what the young people call them now. That's what Gen Z call them. We have a lot of fine white men who actually do call out Black men with colors. I've been noticing that more and more on social media, even if you're not Black, call it out. Even if you're not Black, call it out. There's a lot of men on my page been calling out colorism. They've been calling out the racism in their communities, and they're allies for Black women. And I love it. I love every single bit of it. I absolutely love it. And they need to continue doing it because we love it. We love it. Like I said, y'all, when it comes to the swirl, I'm always open to the swirl. I'm always open to swirling, dating interracially. That's something that I've never closed my mind to, right? And I always tell Black women, you need to go where you're appreciated, celebrated, and where you're just seen as a queen, right? It don't matter the color. It don't matter the color, right? So that's what I'm gonna say, right? So, we need to call it out. Like I said, we need to call it out. But like I was saying, I think one of the reasons Black women are not really, I guess, given that praise enough for their beauty is because of racism. That's the reason why. It's the reason why. If you take the racism out, take the colorism out, Black women are absolutely the blueprint. They're absolutely the blueprint. And any man who disagrees with that is not educated. Is not educated. I love this. Hi, I love how I have so many people on my live today. We should always call out racism, colorism. I'm a mixed voice though, so I'm biased. Girl, we love a mixed king. Girl, I love mixed men. Love y'all. Love y'all down. Right? I agree. I think we should call it out. And I understand specifically with mixed people, I feel like this is a good conversation because a lot of mixed people come from different households and they like to talk about the differences between the mixed people who come from the Black mothers versus the mixed people who come from the white mothers, right? And so I feel like the mixed people who come from the Black mothers, they like to say that a lot of time they're more accepting. And I've noticed a lot of them are more open to dating Black women, or they're more open to Black beauty standards because they saw their mother. A lot of people also date based on their household, based on the experience they had with their mother. So whatever their mother looked like or whatever their mother praised, that's what they're most likely to be attracted to. Right? Now you do have some mothers, Black mothers who are colorists. I haven't seen a lot of them, but there are some. And then they say with the mixed people who have white mothers, they tend to have a harder time, or they tend to not want to date Black women as much just because they haven't seen that. And then depending on what type of white mother they have, because not every single mixed person's white mother was a good white mother or was accepting. You have some racist white mothers, right? And so you start to see that within the personality. And I always like to say your phenotypes of how you look really dictates how you're going to be treated in America, right? You have some mixed people, they look Black, they look mixed, right? They have kinkier hair, they have the light to brown skin. You have mixed people who are dark skin, who have brown skin like Blasian people, right? And then you have the mixed people who are white passing, who are white presenting, racially ambiguous. When you look at them, you can't really tell what they are, right? I can't tell if you're Latino. I can't tell if you're Indian. I can't tell if you're Middle Eastern, right? And those mixed people are treated differently than the mixed people who have a more Black or African phenotype, right? Right? Yes, beauty standards in America absolutely are white standards. Absolutely. Right? So you have to understand every mixed person has a different experience. But what I was saying, I noticed when a lot of people talk about not white privilege, when a lot of people talk about pretty privilege, I've noticed is always in the same context as colorism or as light skin. They equal light skin with pretty privilege, right? I've noticed that a lot of the time there's always undertones of colorism when people talk about pretty privilege with black people. We also have white privilege. The same thing. I'm gonna mention this as well because I'm taught. This is my personal experience dealing with a pretty boy who was white. They can have, depending on what type of background they come from, and I'm not talking down on nobody. Some of them also have colorist ideologies. It's not, well, I guess it would be considered more racist, but some of them also have colorist ideologies. I remember there was a TikTok that actually got a lot of views. I got thousands of likes on this TikTok. This was a couple years ago, right? There is this white guy who was asked by this, he looked like a biracial presenting or lighter skin presenting black male, right? And he asked this white young guy, "Do you like black women?" And he said, "I like light skins. I like light skins." And that kind of like blew my mind because I was like, where did you learn to speak like that? Like, where, as a white man, where did you learn to speak like that? A lot of time they learn that from black men. And this is why I was saying before, with white men and white guys, if you have friends who are colorist or racist, you need to call it out, right? Because there's a lot of black men who will also kind of, I guess, they'll kind of like, I guess, influence this colorist ideology onto men of other races because they talk down on black women a lot, right? These are the type of black men who only date white women or only date outside of their race, who constantly talk about how they don't like black women. We all know those men on the internet, right? But he was saying, "I like light skins." And the way he came off as a white man, that was very racist to me. I was like, that's weird. Where'd you learn to talk like that? Because us in the black community, we say that a lot, right? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with lighting lighter skinned people. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not putting anybody down or saying it is wrong. But there's a difference between having a preference and then being a colorist, right? But I think it's important to be knowledgeable that the reason why black women a lot of the time are not seen as beautiful is because of this racism and it's systematic racism. Even when it comes to the statistics, which y'all, I'm about to be wrapping this up in a few minutes. I have to go. But even when it comes to, opportunities in the workplace, when it comes to the statistics of incarceration rates, right? There is always a clear indication, a clear privilege with lighter skinned people. Darker skinned people are most likely to receive microaggressions and have a harder time in the workplace versus lighter skinned people. And also darker skinned men are most likely to be incarcerated. That's an actual statistic. I wrote an essay about this years ago, right? And so I always like to say, for our mixed biracial or lighter skinned brothers and sisters, it's always good to be an ally, right? When you have a privilege, and the same thing with men outside the black community, when you have a privilege, it's important to use that privilege to benefit and help others, right? If you're not speaking out against this stuff, you're not really doing anything. Just like with racist people, right? If you're not speaking against racism, you're not actually proactively trying to deal with racism, then you're either you're racist or you're anti-racist. Either you're colorist or you're anti-colorist. That's kind of how I see it, because colorism is pretty much under the same umbrella as racism to me. It's the same thing. You said, yeah, bit of a side eye. I'm wary of fetishization. I know I've been victim. Oh, my first black. Yes. Yep. You're giving facts, sir. T. I love it. T. I love it. This is tea, y'all. I could literally go live and talk about like being biracial. I'm personally not biracial, but that would be an interesting live to do, talking specifically about the struggles and about the hardships of people who are racially ambiguous and biracial. I think that's an interesting topic. Yes, that is one thing a lot of mixed people have to worry about is fetishization. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier in my live. I was saying that people who tend to have those features, people tend to not judge them for the right reasons. People want to get with them for the wrong reasons. People, like, when you have pretty privilege or you have some sort of attraction privilege, people tend to be drawn to you for the wrong reasons, right? You attract lust driven people, opportunists. You attract people who might be jealous of you, right? So they're envious, they have malice towards you, right? So I think that's a very interesting thing to say. But yeah, let me go through. You said, yes, love it. Love it. This person says, white people don't hate blacks. I'm not even going to even entertain these type of comments because if you don't believe racism is real, you're the problem. And it's pretty obvious that it is. So racism, there's no such thing as really horrible racism against white. Even if you are racist towards a white person, there's nothing, is not going to hurt you and is not going to affect you like it would a black person. Racism towards a black person, racism towards black people is systematic. Racism towards white people is not systematic. It's not systematic for white people. Yeah, your feelings might get hurt, but you're not going to not get opportunities, and you're not going to be like pretty much racially profiled just because you're white. You're not going to be incarcerated and have a higher chance of being incarcerated because you're white, right? That doesn't exist. When a black person deals with racism, it affects them on a wide scale, right? You might have people like, oh, I don't like them, blah, 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 but that's everybody. You're going to always have haters, right? But it's not systematic for white people. But yeah, y'all, I'm going to have to go. You know what? I might have part 2 of this live. I think I'm going to go live a little later today or tomorrow and have part 2. I have to run, y'all. But yes, I enjoyed this live. Definitely support your girl. Like, follow, support my social medias. I really appreciate it, y'all. Again, this was a really good conversation, and I would definitely like to go into it a little bit more. Again, thank you again. It's been over a week since I've started my show, but I feel like it's been good so far. So yes, I'll talk to y'all later. All right, and comment down below if you have any other ideas you want me to go live with, any other any other topics or anything like that. I'm burping, y'all. But yes, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.